Okay, by show of hands, who here has contacted a demon to help boost the viewership of your late night TV show? Now don't lie, I got some built-in lie detectors here. Well, if you honestly haven't, then you definitely aren't Jack Delroy, who is the main subject of today's horrifying movie. The movie we're gonna be dipping our feet into today. Ew. It came out not too long ago at all, but I feel like there hasn't been enough hype about it. It's got such a cool, fresh premise that I haven't seen in really any other horror movie. And you're about to see what I mean, to the full extent. Another reason it's such a great watch is that it has Dave Dalmatian, I don't know. Dalmatian, whatever his name is, as the main actor, and he always gives a performance, as you're about to see. Now, the aforementioned Jack Delroy, he's the host of a somewhat failing late-night TV show called Night Owls, taking place in the 70s, and since his late-night show is not pulling in the numbers he needs it to, Jack over here decides to pull out all the stops for his episode taking place on Halloween night of 1977, planning to go to whatever lengths possible to bring his ratings back up. And little does he know that that upcoming Halloween episode will give him far more than he bargained for. So the whole movie is presented as, I guess, technically found footage, because the whole movie is presented as the recently discovered master tape of everything that took place on and off air on that ill-fated Halloween night. So it's a first-hand look into the TV event that shocked the nation. Ooh. So the footage of that ill-fated episode begins with Jack Delroy opening up the show as normal, greeting the audience and hinting at the spooky wooky acts he's got in store for them, telling them that he's got a very special episode planned for that Halloween night. And indeed he does, right alongside his right arm man and I guess semi-co-host named Gus. Now the first guest on tonight's soon-to-be cursed episode is a psychic or medium named Chris Stu. And Jack brought him on the show to kind of showcase, but also to test his powers and his abilities, to see if he's the real deal. Which, you know, in my opinion, I don't think there is such a thing as a real deal psychic or medium. Just personally, but whatever. And when Chris Stu begins his performance or showcase of his abilities or psychic powers, it's a little lackluster and hoaxy feeling because he can't make any right connections with the audience. Like, he comes up with the name Peterman and no one can really make any genuine connection to it. But when Chris Stu walks over to a mother and daughter duo sitting in the front row of the audience, the name Eddie or Edward comes to him, and he asks them if that's of any relevance to them. Probably hoping it's of some relevance to them. And lucky for Chris Stu, that name does ring a bell to them. Eddie or Edmund was the name of their son/brother, and Chris Stu tells him he's getting the vibe that something tragic happened to him, to which the mother and daughter confirm that Eddie had killed himself. So Chris Stu's on a bit of a roll here, finally. So with that, the crowd is kind of impressed, and so is Jack. And as Jack Delroy is about to cut to an ad break, Chris Stu gets this kind of painful, agonizing ringing in his head, claiming that there's something very intense here, as he's pretty much keeling over in head pain. And then, because his head is like on the point of implosion, he starts screaming and desperately asking, like, does anyone know of Minnie here? Does Minnie mean anything to anyone, please? And he's begging that if anyone knows Minnie, please accept, please accept. Because I guess accepting the spirit would alleviate the tension from him, maybe, I don't know. I don't know how it works. Ask Leroy, maybe Clyde. Leroy's a little more experienced with evil spirits, though. But apparently the name Minnie means nothing to anybody in the audience. So Chris Stu is still in agony and is saying he sees an unmarried man still wearing a wedding ring, and that whoever that is, the spirit needs to talk to them. Right as Chris Stu's eyes are rolling back in his head, the lights are flickering on and off, and before everything returns to normal, and Chris Stu says, she's gone. So Jack's kind of just standing there, taken aback a little bit, like, oh, okay. Before he promptly cuts to an ad break. And during the ad break, one of his producers named Leo Fisk comes up to Jack and tells him that he's very pleased with how the show's turning out so far tonight. Because there's a little drama going on, there's a little bit of spirit tensity. The show may be going well so far, but Chris Stu ain't looking too hot. Chris Stu ain't doing too well. He's looking a little disturbed and unsettled and under the weather. Under a damn storm cloud there. But the show must go on. And after the ad break concludes, Jack introduces their next guest, who is a man named Carmichael Haig. And Haig over here used to be renowned as Carmichael the Conjurer, and was highly renowned for his magical abilities and magical performances and all that realm of stuff. Except now he is retired from that, and long since retired, because now Haig is now one of the leading voices of the skeptic movement, and is now dedicated to exposing psychics, magicians, mediums, what he once was, as hoaxes and charlatans, because I guess he would know the tricks better than anyone else, right? And he offers a $500,000 check to anyone whose paranormal or supernatural claims can be actually verified. And he keeps that check tucked in his pocket because he feels like it's never gonna be used. Because Haig believes he will never receive any irrefutable proof that all that stuff is true. So it seems Jack brought him on to just kind of stir up some tension because confrontation and controversies equals views, right? Jack's probably hoping that they get an onstage fight because the views will just soar through the roof. And Christou over there is not looking too pleased at Haig's newfound presence on the stage. Especially because Haig comes across as a very outspoken, to the point, brusque type of person. Regarding Christou as nothing more than an accomplished performer. And regarding that Eddie or Edmund connection he made earlier, Haig says, well, even a broken clock is right twice a day. And as Haig continues to go after Christou's credibility, and continues claiming him a fraud and a charlatan, Christou doesn't get too happy about this and gets a little worked up. In fact, he ends up splashing his water in Haig's face before storming off toward the stage door, which is closed. So amid the newfound guest tension, and as Christou is demanding that they open the stage door so he can leave, Jack reveals that the last Christou reading regarding someone named Minnie might actually apply to himself. You see, old Jackaboy over here, he was previously happily married to a woman named Madeline before she was diagnosed with a really aggressive form of lung cancer and subsequently died to it. And since they were so close, her death took a major toll on him, and it still does. So in somber tones, Jack now reveals to the audience that the name Minnie was his private nickname for his late wife. Which, if that's the case, why did he not speak up earlier when Christou's head was splitting open? Anyway, Jack goes further to connect a little tidbit that Christou mentioned at the same time. Because earlier Christou sputtered through his agony that he sees an unmarried man wearing a wedding ring. And Jack shows the audience that this description also fits him because he's still wearing his wedding ring. And I guess he's technically unmarried now. And the audience gasps, Christou was right. But of course, Haig is immediately on the offense and citing all the reasons in the book why this was staged and how Christou, he knew that beforehand or something. And Christou is still over by the door, except he's not looking too good and he's starting to keel over in pain. He looks a little sickly. Not to mention we can hear his gut is aggressively bubbling. he's got the bubbly guts. And as Haig is continuing to trip over himself to debunk everything that Jack just claimed, Christou collapses down and then starts spraying this black oozy puke all over Haig. Jack calling for an immediate ad break as Christou starts spewing that black ooze on the camera. So a commercial break is then cut. So once they're in an ad break, Christou is rushed off the stage back to his dressing room where the medics can look at him to figure out what the hell just happened. And Haig over here is still trying to debunk it and decry it and say it was practice regurgitation or something like that. And of course, something that is not check-worthy. This ain't passing the sniff test to old Haig over here. He ain't buying. But you know what? He deserved to be thrown up on. He really did. So the cast and crew and, I'm sure the audience is a little perturbed by what just happened. I mean, it's not every day you see someone spew black ooze from their bodies or their mouths. But the show must go on, right? And the show does go on, except, of course, without Christou. Haig is still there, and Jack introduces their next guest, Dr. June Ross Mitchell, who is a parapsychologist who just authored a disturbing biographical account regarding the dark dealings of a demonic, recently deceased cult. And before Dr. June comes on stage, there's a tape made by her that's played that describes all that via Dr. June's voiceover on the tape. She explains that there was a demonic cult who worshipped the demon Abraxas, apparently, and that they would do all sorts of depraved, debauched cult-like stuff, such as sacrificing babies and people alike. And all these evil cult members ended up killing themselves, besides one 10-year-old girl who was the sole survivor. So Dr. June took this then 10-year-old girl under her care, under her guardianship, and since she's a doctor of the parapsychological and the, I guess, paranormal to an extent, Dr. June started kind of studying and examining the girl and all the strange behavior she was exhibiting, that little girl being named Lily. And through her studying of Lily and her research and the sessions she had with her, Dr. June has come to the conclusion that there is an entity living inside Lily, kind of using her body as a host. And over the past 3 years that Lily has been in her care, Dr. June has tried to further contact the demon or entity living inside Lily and to learn more about it, which just does not sound like a good idea. I think, I don't know, cut your losses and ditch the kid, let's be real. So the next guest appearance on Jack's show is actually Dr. June and Lily, that now 13-year-old girl, with the possible demon entity living inside of her. That will just make for a great show, won't it? And when they take a seat, Lily is just giving off that creep factor. Something's a little off, you know. Especially by the way she stares into the camera when she's talking. And she tells him that she's never seen his show before because she's usually in bed by the time it's on. Continuing to say, "But I know who you are, Mr. Delroy." And she tells him not to worry about his TV show, ominously stating, "I think you're gonna be very famous soon." So then they cut to another ad break, in which June pulls Jack aside and she tells him, "I don't think bringing Lily on the show was a great idea. She's becoming too unpredictable lately." But Jack's sentiment is like, well, unpredictable's good for ratings, right? And it's obvious that there's some extent of history between Jack and June. Jack and June. They seem to know each other to some degree, but that's not clarified. Anywho, Jack being Jack just kind of brushes away her concerns and says, it's fine. Lily will do great. Be a great show and give me great reviews, you know. Still in the ad break, the producer Leo pulls Jack aside and tells him that he just got news that Christou just died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, and that he was pretty much purging blood from every orifice, experiencing an intense hemorrhage of sorts. Or that's what the paramedics think anyway. So Jack is pretty shocked because he thought Christou's whole display and his whole performance was just that, a display and a performance and an act. But apparently Christou wasn't over there acting. Oh hell. And Jack barely has a second to collect himself before they have to go back on live. And once the show is back on, Dr. June explains her area of research, the parapsychological, going on to say that from the past 3 years of studying Lily, that whatever demon is inside her is one of the more minor deities under Abraxas, the same demon that the cult was worshipping. And if it wasn't already horrible enough having a demon living inside of you, Lily has named that demon Mr. Wriggles because of the way it wriggles into her brain and then wriggles out. Can someone get Homegirl over here in exorcism? Stat. Although through the years, June's methods and sessions have helped Lily get better control of the demon. And of course, you know, as Dr. June is explaining all this, Haig is off to the side making skeptic jabs throughout and just trying to interrupt and debunk as she's speaking. Like, sit down, Haig, calm down. You're gonna be okay. Well, maybe. Maybe. Just then, Gus's soundboard goes off all by itself, and it's that really high-pitched alien-type sound or music noise, and it's getting louder by the second, and Gus is trying to shut it off, but when he touches it, he gets zapped. And as that sound is only getting louder and louder, everyone's covering their ears, and Jack's yelling at Gus, turn it off, turn it off! And then the table on the stage starts shaking, and the glasses on top of it shatter and burst, and everyone seems to be a little bit freaked out by it, except Lily, until Haig goes over and finally unplugs the machine, thus bringing the brain-scrambling high-pitched squeal to an end. Haig claiming that the noise was just feeding back through the PA system, and that the glasses broke due to the high-pitched caliber of it. Yeah, like hell that was just a sound system malfunction, Haig. What? Haig is just buried a little too deeply in his confirmation bias over there. And then Freakazoid Lily over here pipes in and says, it was Mr. Wriggles, and confirming that Mr. Wriggles is now in the studio with them. At that point, I'd be like, you know, I think someone's calling me. Oh yeah, I have this big appointment. I can't miss it. I gotta go. I gotta leave. And after hearing that Mr. Wriggles is present, Jack gets dollar signs in his eyes, and he says, how about we try inviting Mr. Wriggles onto the show? That will be great for views. To which Dr. June immediately refuses, saying that a summoning to this extent, or in general, requires a carefully controlled environment, and that the conditions here are not conducive to that. But then Jack reminds her of that $500,000, that $500,000 check that Carmichael's got burning in his pocket, and he's kind of like, prove him wrong and get some hella money, Dr. June. And of course, Lily's excited, and we gotta try Dr. June, please! And the audience is just as hype and just as wanting to see a demonic possession take place on stage, on air. Though obviously not too happy about it, Dr. June begrudgingly agrees to try, but Dr. June agrees to carefully make an attempt, stating that she will only do a brief demonstration. And you know, Gus over there is not looking too on board himself. So Jack is all hyped and tells the audience, okay, after our ad break, you're gonna see a real-life demonic possession. Ooh, the executives are gonna love this. So when they cut to ad break, June is obviously pissed that he put her in such a spot and forced her hand and cornered her like on stage in front of a live audience and pressured her into doing it. And Gus shares to Jack his own concerns, warning Jack that he's meddling with things he does not understand and should not be messing with. But Jack responds that, you know, he's just trying to keep the show alive and bring in viewership, and he's doing what he can. And at this point, the risk is worth it. But Gus does not think so, and Gus begs him to stop before something bad happens, but of course Jack just brushes him off. Yeah, it's fine, it's gonna be fine. Shut up, Gus. Shut up. So then everyone gets in their places and the show kicks back on live, this time with a much more dramatic setup and ambiance. June and Lily are now sitting across from each other on a darkened stage with a spotlight on them. Lily actually restrained her chair, maintaining that creepy, irksome smile of hers. June begins explaining that it is paramount that the audience stays calm and quiet throughout the entire session, and that Lily's focus needs to be maintained solely on June. So under the anticipatory gaze of the audience and the scrutinizing eyes of Haig, June begins the summoning session, managing to put Lily to sleep and eventually bringing Mr. Wriggles to the surface, exhibited by Lily jerking and writhing before breaking out into demonic-sounding giggling. And when June asks it, "Who are you?" it replies in an equally demonic, deep-set voice, "You know who I am, Doctor." And we see that Lily's face has taken on a type of appearance. Her skin is split and her eyes look dead and she just looks entirely demonic. Ooh. So the audience is audibly disturbed and gasping and like, ooh. Which draws Demon Lily's attention over to them. So now the demon realizes that it has an audience. And then Demon Lily turns to Jack, who's watching from the shadows, and it says, "Good to see you again, Jack." Again? And Jack is like, "I don't think we've ever met." Everyone laugh. But the demon volleys back, "Don't be a fool. We go way back." Hinting further at some shady business or even ritualistic involvement that Jack has been rumored to have undertaken. Because, you know, fame ain't free. So it seems that Jack has taken on some shady dealings to get where he is. So Jack may be acting confused, but his expression is snitching on him. I think he knows exactly what this demon's referencing. And then Demon Lily starts making these awful remarks about his ex-wife, reveling in the fact of how horrible her death was, saying this to Jack's face. So needless to say, Jack is a little stunned and shaken up, and this whole possession thing seems to be backfiring against him a little bit. And as the demon is continuing to aggressively verbally needle and jab, Dr. June is hurriedly trying to bring Lily back to the surface. Except it's not working. The demon continuing on in its vicious threats and taunts, even after June slaps it across the face, or slaps Lily across the face, I guess. June then has to pull out all the stops and pulls out some type of sacred emblem she wears around her neck, beginning to urgently recite some incantation to bring Lily back to the surface, except it's not working and the demon is giggling in her face. The demon even reciting part of the incantation alongside June to mock her. So it's obviously not working. And then an electric current start rushing in the wires above them, above the studio. Lily's starting to actually levitate in her chair off the ground. And by this point, the audience is fully spooked. I mean, I guess everyone there is. And things are just growing more intense by the second, until Lily's chair just slams back to the ground, and Lily seems to be brought back to the forefront of her own mind and her own body. And then everyone is just stunned into silence as Dr. June is comforting Lily and apologizing over and over again, and everyone's just like, "Y'all see that? Y'all see that?" But guess who pipes up? Haig, saying that it was just all trickery and smoke and mirrors, and there's definitely some type of explanation for it. And once the ad break is commenced, Jack's first feedback to June was that was amazing. This is a show-stopping spectacle, and you can just see the dollar signs in his eyes. But June is not amused. She is not happy. Especially that the demon almost got out of her grasp on live TV. But more importantly to Jack, producer Leo just got off the phone with the big wigs and the high execs, and he relays to Jack that they thought it was, wow, a massive enthralling TV moment, one of the biggest in live TV history, and needless to say, they are very pleased, and subsequently, so is Jack. So once everything has settled and Lily is unchained from the chair, and everyone's ruffled feathers have kind of cooled, they go back on live. Jack making a brief apologies to the viewers for the disturbing spectacle they just witnessed. Lily looking completely back to normal and completely, I'm happy to be here. And Lily goes out of her way to say, "I'm sorry if Mr. Wriggle said anything rude." Yeah, I don't think rude even begins to describe it, but okay. And then, of course, we get the expected monologue from Haig about it all being smoke and mirrors and trickery and hypnosis of the audience and the audience at home. But Jack and June are quick to rebut that. Like, how the hell could we have pulled that off? Like, she actually damn levitated and her face changed in a second. Not to mention the demon-sounding voice that came out of Lily. But of course, Haig is still not convinced, and the audience doesn't really like that, and they're booing him. Good. Haig deserves that. Saying that, if he may, he wants to prove his thesis and his debunkings of what just happened. So Jack gives him the floor and tells him, "Okay, Haig, you got 5 minutes. So Haig goes over and selects Gus as an involuntary volunteer, and Gus is not too thrilled. So Haig and Gus then sit across from each other in the same fashion that Lily and June just did, where Haig successfully hypnotizes Gus and the entire audience into genuinely believing that horrific fictional things happened to Gus in that little hypnotic session there, such as worms breaking out through Gus's neck, spilling out from his guts through a rip in Gus's stomach, and a massive worm squirming its way out of Gus's eye socket. But all the horrific things that the audience just was absolutely sure they witnessed in real time, it was all due to Haig's hypnosis of them. And when the audience and Gus were in a hypnotic state, Haig was just giving them verbal prompts, making everyone believe that they were seeing exactly as Haig was describing. And after Haig snaps Gus out of the hypnosis, Gus has no idea what just happened or that anything actually happened, and he even asks, "Alright, when are we gonna begin?" But everyone in the room, including Jack, 100% absolutely believes what they saw was actually real, and that there's no way it was just all hypnosis. So Jack insists on pulling out the studio tape that was taping what happened so they could watch it in real time because, tapes don't lie. And when they pull up the tape and start playing what just happened, they see that indeed nothing at all happened to Gus. It was just Haig hypnotizing them and kind of manipulating their reality. And Haig suggests that that is exactly what Dr. June just did with Lily and the demonic possession that just took place. So he's insisting that the demonic possession, what Dr. June did, it was all hypnosis and a trick on the mind. So Lily's sitting over there like, "Oh, okay. How about we pull up the tape from when we did the demonic possession? Because, tapes don't lie." And they'll show the obviously unhypnotized version, the real version of what actually happened. But June's immediately like, no. We can't subject Lily to that again. She can't witness or experience that a second time. Bad things may happen. Just don't do it. And June is threatening to leave, but Lily wants to stay and prove to them that it was all very much real. So Jack has the crew pull up that tape segment of the demonic possession, and as they watch it, the tape depicts exactly what happened. Chair levitating and all. So Haig is stumped and still trying to explain it away, like, well, maybe this or this, yeah, definitely that. And mid-tape, Jack catches a glimpse of something and makes the crew go back and pause on a single frame, and in that single frame that shows him sitting in the background watching the demonic possession, he sees a spectral image of his late wife Minnie standing over his shoulder. So now Jack is hella shaken up, and Haig is growing angrier and angrier with every second he can't explain away what he just saw and what the audience all now has the proof of. So Haig is continuing to desperately grasp at straws as Lily starts to kind of malfunction and buzz with electricity, just as the studio lights ebb in and out and flicker on and off. And then out of nowhere, Lily morphs or bursts into the female equivalent of, like, Mr. Electric over here. And she's absolutely consumed by electricity as massive beams of it are shooting from both of her arms. Now an electrical hotspot, Lily starts screaming as her head splits apart into like a ball of electricity shooting out everywhere. And then Gus jumps in, trying to compel the demon with his cross necklace, like, "The power of Christ compels you." Oh, I actually have a cross. "The power of Christ compels you." Right before the now mega demon looks over and with just a brief glance, breaks Gus's neck. Which is a shame because Gus was a chill guy. When you guys watch this movie, you'll see what I mean. Gus is chill, but now he's gonna be chilling 6 feet under. So understandably, the audience is hella panicked and scrambling to get the hell out of the studio. And June makes a desperate, audacious attempt to draw Lily back to the surface once more, even in the midst of this, which just results in Dr. June being strung up by her necklace in the process, which subsequently splits her neck open because of the pressure. So there goes their last attempt at getting Lily back under control. Not that I think it's possible at this point. Then Haig comes over and gets down on his knees before the mega demon and starts begging for his life, pulling out that $500,000 check as a last-ditch effort kind of bribe, but to a demon. That piece of paper obviously means nothing to the demon, so the demon just sets the check ablaze, Haig beginning to burn in a similar fashion, burning from the inside out and melting as Jack is witnessing this absolute horror and havoc, getting a front row seat to all this carnage and massacre around him in his studio, before his producer comes to whisk him away through that stage door, right as Jack and the demon kind of share a look of acknowledgement. Like, a look of recognition almost. But then Jack is finally pulled and shielded behind the stage door, and then the TV program cuts to fuzz, right as it cuts to a station difficulties screen. Station difficulties, to say the least. Damn. And then Jack finds himself being announced back onto the studio stage by Gus, just like normal, whereafter he finds himself flicking through past skits and guest appearances that he had on the show in years prior, but they're all warped and slightly different or corrupted to some degree. Jack coming up to the camera in the midst of one to beg the viewers to turn off their TVs. "Stop watching, please." Then Jack kind of tumbles down a mental spiral before finding himself back in his original office, signing that original contract, after which he's handed a chalice and escorted away by cult-looking members. Then these cult members bring Jack to a room with a bunch of people dressed in Halloween costumes, one guy in particular congratulating Jack on such a successful show, before Jack is forced down to his knees in front of a guy dressed as an owl, where he's forced to drink from the chalice, whatever the hell is in that, drinking it as the creepy crowd around him breaks out in animalistic jeers. And then he finds himself opening a door to his sickly dying wife in bed, who, through gasps and sputters, expresses to Jack that she knows that he did some shady dealings to get where he is today, to accrue his current fame or status on night owls, saying that he sold his soul and then implying that her cancer and her death was part of the price he had to pay. And then since, I guess, this memory version of her is continuing to suffer as his wife did in her life, she begs him to kill her, to put her out of her misery, and finally and begrudgingly, he does, stabbing her in the stomach with a cult-like dagger, of all things. And right as he stabs her in the stomach, he snaps back to reality, where he is now instead holding a dagger into Lily's stomach, who is completely unconscious. And he's right back in the studio, in the center of the aftermath of all that chaos. So it seems he never left the studio like he thought. And he's standing on stage all by himself, in the midst of all those bodies of the people he knew and invited onto the show, and the studio is completely empty and silent around him, as we hear the growing sound of incoming sirens. And then it cuts to black. Anything for views, right? Anything. Anyone for views, right? And to be fair, he probably got some sick viewership that night, but at what cost? But that's what makes this movie so cool. Point me to another horror movie that takes place on the set of a late night show. Like, hello. And of course, David Dalmatian? David Dalmatian is perfect for this role, kills it, and the premise is just so enrapturing and interesting and creepy in all the right ways. So grab a little demon buddy and pull you up a chair and get to watching, people, because this is a good one. This is a real good one. So class, our takeaway today is to never initiate a demon possession / summoning on live TV. Who would have thought that was a bad idea?